dive into tendons and the biology behind tendons and why it's so important that we appropriately load these tendons specifically to what we're trying to accomplish.
Again, to your point, it's important that we spend a lot of time talking about tendons because they're one of the most likely areas that we're going to start to maybe feel sensitive as our training stimulus changes, regardless of your desired style of training. Tendons can become sensitive when there's a really quick change in the way we train and how hard we train. So I think it's really important, again, to dive into exactly how we're going to give these parts of our body the work they need so we can return to exactly the type of training that we want to return to. What are the kind of things that are most important in this reacclimation stage or this back to the gym stage to give our tendons the work they need so we can perform at our best?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the most important thing is that these tendons are being loaded specifically to what we're asking them to do. So I'm going to use an example with an overhead throwing athlete. If I haven't thrown in 3 months, the worst thing that I could do is pick up a ball and chuck it as far and as fast as I can without building up my resiliency, without taking my ceiling from here up to here to be able to perform that task without injuring myself, right? Because if my goal is to perform, but then I do too much past what my capacity or what my ceiling is, I'm not going to be able to train for a few days because of the soreness. So we want to make sure that we're loading these tendons specifically to the sport. And how do we do that? Well, we have to look at the movements and we have to look at the tendons and the muscle groups and how they all work together. So if I'm coming back into Olympic lifting and I'm going for a squat clean or a squat snatch, I need to adapt my tendons in a lower catch position compared to doing like a box squat. If I'm an overhead athlete, overhead fitness athlete, my rotator cuff, yes, it does external rotation, but its bigger role is dynamic stability. So I need to do a lot of dynamic stability work under load to get ready for those movements that we're going to be incorporating back in as we phase back into gym's opening.
The types of movements that tendons can become sensitive to, right? In addition to becoming sensitive to changes in the way we train, especially when that happens quickly, tendons can become sensitive to really fast movements that happen over and over and over again. So think running and jumping. A lot of the time, these are movements that we like to include in our training, right? So it's important, again, that we train our tendons specifically to those activities so they can become more prepared to handle that kind of work, regardless of what your desired type of training